إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد, we start in the name of Allah, exalted be He, the one who gives, the one who takes, the one who is glorified beyond any imperfection, subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and his family and his followers until the end of time. Ameen. I want to start off today with a quote from that's mentioned in the beginning of a book called Agenda to Change Our Condition. And this book was co-authored by Sheikh Hamza Yusuf and Imam Zaid Shakir a number of years ago. And there's a quote in the beginning of the text that I want to start with. And that is a reference to the American poet Ezra Pound. So here's the quote, and then I'll comment a little on it and I'll repeat it again. The American poet Ezra Pound remarked that he had no idea of the force that was unleashed from the Arabian Peninsula in the 7th century that led to 1,000 mosques in Cordoba, Spain, until he caught a glimpse of it in the way a Muslim walked in Tangier in 1913. Okay, so this quote is starting off with, it's attributed to Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound was an American poet and author around the turn of the 1900s, and he actually lived most of his life outside of the United States. He was very critical of the United States, but that's a side issue. The point is that he was a poet. And oftentimes poets and authors, they notice things that other people don't notice. And they see things that other people don't see. And so this is saying that Ezra Pound didn't understand, he himself didn't understand, what was unleashed in the 7th century in Arabia, meaning Islam. He didn't understand this thing, Islam, that came out of Arabia, that led to 1,000 mosques in Cordoba. He didn't really understand the power of this thing until he saw the way a Muslim walked in Tangier in 1913. Tangier is in North Africa. The first time I read this, and every time I read it, and every time I think about it, it just blows my mind. Because this is an extremely powerful statement, right? Saying he really understood what Islam was about by seeing the way that someone walked. One of the things that comes to my mind is, who was this person that he saw? Right? Like, I'm sure he saw a lot of people in Tangier, but who was this particular Muslim that walked in this particular way that sent him in that direction to understand it? But part of what that leads us to, and part of the reflection that should take us towards, is that this way of Islam is a way of transformation. It is a way of elevation. And it is a way that takes the human being from any number of conditions that are possible for the human being, and there are many, and elevates them to the highest place that we can get in this life. And I think that, what I said, that they could be in any place, is important, because oftentimes in the Muslim community, when we think about people who get serious about Islam or decide to change their life around or inspired by Islam, we tend to focus on the stories of the people who have really bad lives before Islam, and then you see it's a very clear distinction, right? But sometimes someone can have a relatively decent life, very moral and ethical, and be doing okay, so on and so forth, but they're not what they were meant to be. The human being is not able to acquire the position and the state that they are meant to acquire unless it is through the submission to the Most High. Now, this is the absolute key, that we have to submit to God. And through the submission to God, we are able to elevate to the best that we can possibly be. And this is why God, Allah says in the Quran, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. He says that Allah raises those who have believed, and those who have been given knowledge ranks, they're even higher ranks. But He raises them. I've seen no shortage of people in my life that are like this. No shortage of people. They might be living average lives, they might be living bad lives, they might be having no direction, right? And then they get very serious about Islam. And they get very serious about Islam in a healthy way, in the way that they're supposed to. And you see them 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, they're different people. Beautiful, amazing, incredible people. And even this issue about the way that a man walked in Tangier in 1913, there are remnants of that. There are remnants of the blessing of the Prophet ﷺ upon his followers. Now one brother just this week, he told me, we were talking about this, and he told me something. He converted to Islam in his late 20s. And he was a college student in his late 20s. And he said, I came to the university and I was around all of these people who were 18, 19 years old. And I'm 26, 27, 28 years old. And I started to meet these Muslims. Right? I'm meeting 18-year-old, 19-year-old Muslim kids. And I meet these kids who, they don't curse, they don't party, they don't chase after girls, they go to class, they do their work. It's like they do all of these things that are not standard for your average college student, right? And he's like, I'm 10 years older than them, and I followed these people. And it was natural to me that I should be following them. They know what they're doing, I should follow them. Eventually he became a Muslim. But he was inspired by their character and their conduct before he ever became a Muslim. For me, on a personal level, two categories or two peoples that I still personally find a glimpse of this in, and you'll find it in various elements of the Muslim communities around the world. But for me, I've seen this, the two people that I can think of that have struck me the most in terms of the way that they carry themselves. One was from Sudan, and the other side is from West Africa. There's people, there's a different feel about it. You can't put your finger on it. But this is the way of Islam has been bred into the bloodline of the people. You know, the way they are is different. The generosity, the kindness, the way they carry themselves, the way they deal with others, all so beautiful. And this is the way of Islam. And this is what we want to reflect. Inshallah, Allah give us tawfiq. It's not easy to do, but it's easy for Allah to do. It's not easy for us to do, but it's easy for Allah to do, to give us this kind of thing in our lives. But this way, it changes people. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, he said, النَّاسُ مَعَادٍ, that people are like minerals. The best of them in Jahiliyyah are the best of them in Islam, إِذَا فَقُهُ, if they get deep understanding of religion. The particular way that this verb is, it's important for anyone that understands Arabic. This hadith is not narrated as إِذَا فَقَهُ or as إِذَا فَقِهُ. It's narrated as إِذَا فَقُهُ with Dammatul Qaf, which is very, very important actually. Because this makes the verb now from what they call in Arabic Af'al as-Sajiyah. That this is from the verbs that indicate the way of being of someone. And all of these, it's interesting, like the word Kareem in Arabic, it comes from Karuma with Dammatul Ra. Because the generosity of the person becomes natural to them. This is someone you can call them Kareem. If someone is called a faqih, from that verb that's in the hadith, it means that the knowledge of religion to them becomes absolutely natural. They just know. You don't even have to give them a text. They understand this is Islam and this is not Islam. And that's not something you get overnight, obviously. But you get through company of people that are close to Allah. You get it through study, you get it through spiritual discipline, you get it through a number of things. But there are people like that. And the Prophet ﷺ is saying that these people are the people who are going to be the best in Islam if they get that deep understanding. What reflects that then is one of the statements that I've mentioned many times of Imam al-Qarafi, one of the great Imams of Islam, who said, لَوْ لَمْ يَكُنْ لِرَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ مُعْجِزَةٌ إِلَّا أَصْحَابَهُ لَكَفَوْهُ لِإِثْبَاتِ نُبُوَّتِهِ. He said, radiallahu anhu, he said, if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had no miracle other than his companions, which thereby indicates that he had many miracles, right? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam had many miracles. He's saying if he had no miracle other than his companions, that would have been enough to prove that he was a prophet of God. Now think about that. So you look at the people that are around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the way they were transformed on his hands and through following his way. You find people that are absolutely incredible. How is it possible? How is it possible that one man can have Abu Bakr and Omar and Uthman and Ali and Ibn Mas'ud and Ibn Abbas and Mu'adh ibn Jabal and Hassan ibn Thabit and all of these people around him. Hundreds of them that are the most, if we took one of them now, they'd be the best person on earth. Hundreds of them are around one person. Why? Because he's a messenger of God. It's the blessing that God brought to humankind on his hands. So you see this then, but what is it then? These are people that if you see them, you remember Allah. If you see them, you think, these people are different. And that is the way of Islam. Something's happened in the American Muslim community that for better, it was a necessary correction, but now we have to correct it again. So the way that the Muslim American community was before 9/11 was everything in the rhetoric was being different than the West. We're not like the non-Muslims. We're not this. And at least people had like some dignity about themselves. They held their back straight, even if the narrative was off at some level. Then after 9/11, people started to shift the narrative. You know, we're in America, we should have Islam in America, so on and so forth, which is true. It's also true. But then we took it so far that Islam became nothing. Like, we're just going to be the same as everyone else because, you know, that's Islam adapts and so on and so forth. And so all the corrective ideas that corrected the first mistake also then went too far. Islam should exist in America. And it should be American, just the way that Islam is in any other place. In Malaysia, Islam is Malaysian. In North Africa, Islam is North African. In West Africa, Islam is West African. Right? There's no problem with that. But it should still be Islam. Islam is still different. People who submit to Allah, people who have revelation, people who have tradition, people who have history, who have honor, quality of being, that's different than someone who doesn't have any guidance at all. And that's a reality that's okay. It doesn't mean we don't like other people. It just means we appreciate what we have. Right? And so this way then elevates us. What that leads me then to is this quote. With time running out very quickly. And this quote is from a very interesting American Muslim scholar named Rudolph Ware III. He also goes by Bilal. He's an academic and he's a specialist in West African history. And he's written a very beautiful book called The Walking Quran. And it's a survey of West African Muslim education over the course of like the last, how far does he go? Like about 800 years. So it's a beautiful text. And he has a quote in there that's very important. And it's in the context of, you know, the way that people used to learn in West Africa and continue to in some places. And a lot of that was based on memorization. And as we've talked about before, a lot of Western Muslims, they look negatively upon memorization. Classical Muslims, they love memorization. Why? Because Islam is about being, which is this quote is going to get to. Islam is about being. The more things I memorize about Islam, the more they're part of me. Ideas are great, but ideas, they come and go. You're inspired by it, and it leaves. Something you read, you might pick up a few things, and it leaves. But if I'm really serious, for example, about wanting to know Allah, then I want to memorize a poem that tells me everything that I need to know about Allah. Because then it's going to be inside me, right? And it's never going to go away from me. And I could be taken from my land and brutalized and captured and stolen from my people and taken in the most disgusting thing, one of the most disgusting things that's ever happened in history with the Atlantic slave trade, all the way to the New World, quote unquote. And I can be put there under the threat of death for speaking my language. And years can pass, and I can still write you the Quran by heart. This is what we have in Muslim history. You have people that's happened to them. They can write 10 years. They've been enslaved for 10 years. They will be killed if they use their language. And they'll write in Arabic after 10 years. Why? Because when they learn as children, it's all memorization. It's deep inside of who they are. They can review it even if they can't talk to anyone. Imagine that. You can't speak your language, in your head you can review it. Right? So it stays. So he says about this educational model, he says, many Muslims now acquire basic elements of religious knowledge without any direct human interaction at all. Okay? Point one. Many Muslims now acquire basic religious education without any human interaction at all. Okay? As if the Quran was just revealed and the Prophet ﷺ didn't exist. Right? The Prophet ﷺ exists for a reason, because the human interaction is important. Right? Then he says, embodied transmission of Islamic knowledge is being eclipsed by disembodied consumption. Embodied transmission of Islamic knowledge is being eclipsed by disembodied consumption. So what does that mean? That means that the way that the knowledge of Islam, the way of being a Muslim, is meant to be embodied. That's why you have the companions being so amazing. And then the way that you get that knowledge generation after generation is that people who have embodied it transmit it to new bodies, right? They teach you how to live. They teach you how to act. They teach you. We think we're just ended up in the condition we're in just by chance. Every single place that was colonized by colonizing forces in Muslim lands, what do you think one of the first things they did was in every single one of those places? They killed the people of knowledge. This is number one. Right? Because if you kill the people of knowledge, you kill the transmission. Then you get disembodied consumption. People consume the information, but they don't figure out how it is that they're supposed to be. One brother told me about one of his teachers in the Midwest of a Turkish background. And he asked the sheikh, he asked him, why do you always wear the turban? You know, you wear the turban to the basketball game, you wear the turban to your parent-teacher meeting, you wear your turban to the grocery store, whatever it might be, right? He told him, I always wear the turban because the generation of my teachers were a generation of people who the turban was forcibly removed from their heads and they were hanged by their own turbans. And so I wear the turban out of remembering what happened to them and out of remembering the legacy that I carry, right, as a person of knowledge. It's an incredible statement. But this is what people do, because if you kill the embodiment, you kill the religion. Because then everyone is not actually, it's not representing what it's meant to be. And you get disembodied consumption. Which means you talk to the person, you ask them, how is it going? You know, there's a really good book. Oh yeah, I read the book. Okay, but did the book change you? Are you the same afterwards today as you were yesterday? If you're the same today as you were yesterday, that's a problem. We should always be attempting to improve. Be learning something new. At least if it's the same thing we learned before, our heart should be feeling it in a different way. That's the goal, right? So that the knowledge then becomes embodied. And the embodied transmission of knowledge then is what changes people's lives. And this is the way of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. We'll try to wrap this up really quickly, although half of the khutbah is left. But when we don't have embodied transmission of knowledge or embodied knowledge, Allah protect us, we have a lot of problems. We have a lot of problems. And these show themselves in a lot of areas. One of the most primary of these elements, and two of them, just very quickly, one of the most primary of these areas where we see problems as a result of the lack of embodiment of the knowledge is in how we deal with commerce. Okay? Generally, for the most part, the Muslim community deals with converts in a manner that is completely bereft of wisdom. Zero. Like, just no wisdom at all. Because everyone comes to you telling you different things, talking about different things, bringing up issues that really don't need to be brought up on day one, trying to teach you how to pray, everything in 5 minutes, and it's just a mess. Okay? I went through it, so I'm not speaking without experience here. And I continue to go through it. Continue to go through cases where the person converts, the next thing you know, they're invited to auntie and uncle's house, and auntie and uncle are sharing traditions with them about how one of the worst things you can do in Islam is wait to get married when it's time to get married. The person converted 2 days ago. You can already guess which ethnicity and gender they probably are. Right? White females, as soon as they convert, the first thing we want to do is marry them to someone. It's a disaster. Complete disembodiment of the knowledge of Islam. The other major area where this comes up is in parenting. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time belaboring this point, but the idea here is that if we want to embody knowledge, we need to get, first of all, correct knowledge, and we need to live it. And we need to worry about living it ourselves before we're worrying about correcting it and enforcing it and imposing it upon everyone else. The most common issue that I have in all of my chaplaincy office hours with college students is problems with parents. Because there's a disconnect. The knowledge and the message and everything is completely disconnected. And then you have problems. Allah help us. Inshallah, we can fix this, but we have to be serious about it. The major way that we can fix this, number one, is that we have to follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and not our ego. Generally, we follow the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ when it confirms our ego. And if it goes against our ego, then it's okay. We don't need to worry about that part. That's obviously a big problem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, أَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you not seen the one who took their desires as their God? We don't want to be that people. We have to hold the sunnah to be, this is where we submit. It may not be what I want, but if that's what it is and that's what's right, then I have to do it. So this is number one. We have to be serious about that commitment. How do we measure that? One way to measure that, I'll give you two very quickly. One way to measure it is it easy? This is how we ask. Am I very serious about committing to the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ? I should ask myself, is it easy? If I'm finding it to be easy, I'm probably not actually doing it, to be quite blunt. Unless you're a very, very special person that has attained a very high level with Allah, such that everything that the Prophet ﷺ and Allah wants is easy for you. That does happen, and inshallah we all get there. But for most of us, we have to struggle through it. For most of us, the day is hard, and we're tired, and we're exhausted, and so on, and X, Y, Z, and then we come home, and our kid or our spouse does something that we don't like, and we have a question in our mind to navigate, which is, with all of these things going on, what's the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ and how I respond to it? It's probably not going to be easy. And most of the time, it's not easy until we discipline ourselves. And as we discipline ourselves, it becomes easier. Okay, but this is a question to ask. Second question is, where is the fingerprint of the Prophet ﷺ in my life? This goes back then to knowing the sunnah. Where is the fingerprint? Is it in my tone of voice? Is it in the clothes that I wear? Is it in the way that I wear my clothes? Is it in the way that I deal with my children or my spouse or my co-workers, my employees, whatever it might be? But where is the fingerprint? Consciously. How am I being impacted by the way of the Prophet ﷺ? Because we want to be, if we're going to take the message of Islam to generations after us from the Muslims, and to the people around us, we want to be as the Prophet ﷺ described in the following hadith. Allah make us this category of people. They asked him, Ya Rasulullah, man hum awliya'ullah? This is an authentic hadith. Even by the most strict of people, they consider it to be authentic. قِيلَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ مَنْ هُمْ أَوْلِيَاءُ اللَّهِ. They asked him, O Messenger of God, who are the close friends of Allah? He said, الَّذِينَ إِذَا رُؤُوا ذُكِرَ اللَّهِ. Those who, when they are seen, Allah is remembered. When they are seen, Allah is remembered. Why? Because the person is so close to Allah that that's what's reflecting in their life. So when people see them, they think, La ilaha illallah. This is what we can be. This is what we were born to be. Inshallah, Allah bring that to completion for us. Oh Allah, make us from the people who remember you in all affairs. Oh Allah, give us the good of this life and the next. Give us knowledge that benefits us, and benefit us from that which you have taught us. Oh Allah, forgive us of our sins and our shortcomings. Help us to be from those who have embodied that which you have given us from knowledge. Help us to be from those who are close to you, who are your dear friends and your beloved ones, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, give food to those who are hungry, give shelter to those who are shelterless, give victory to those who are oppressed, give gainful employment to those who are unemployed and seeking employment, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Oh Allah, help all of those who are in need, and help all of those who are fleeing hardships and struggles, whether that's in the internal of their own souls or in the external of the lives around them, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma اغفر لنا ذنوبنا واسرافنا في امرنا وثبت اقدامنا. اللهم بارك فينا وبين والف بين قلوبنا وصفوفنا. اللهم كن معنا ولا تكن علينا. وانصر اخواننا المستضعفين في كل مكان. افتح علينا فتح يا عليم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وعملا صالحا. اللهم تقبل منا واعف عنا واتنا في الدنيا حسنه وفي الاخره حسنه وقنا عذاب النار. وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا واقيموا الصلاه.